want to show now why it's so important to capture Minsk on the first turn. Here we have an example of what the victory point screen looks like after one single turn of playing the road to Minsk. You see that at the top there is a set of victory point locations, and there is two columns for each of those, and they are headed ET and EG. ET is points at the end of the turn. EG is points at the end of the game. The Soviets will gain 500 points for having Minsk under their control at the end of every turn, and an additional 500 points if they have it at the end of the game. Simple maths would tell you that in a two-turn game, that would mean that if the Soviets still controlled Minsk at the end of this scenario, they would have 1,500 points. There is no way the Axis can gain 1,500 points or more, even if they were to gain every other point. Especially when we see below that for the Axis to control Polotsk, Lepel, Borisov, etc., some of them are only 25 points for having them under control at the end of the game. Some of them are 50 points. Now you add all of them up and they are not going to come to anywhere near the points that the Soviet Union would gain for having Minsk both at the end of the game and for each turn. There is no bonus to the Axis to gain control of Polotsk after one single turn. They would gain only 25 points whether they gain it at the end of the first turn or the end of the second turn. So Minsk has this special situation that, one, it has a lot of points for it compared to all of the other locations, and secondly, points are gained per turn. Now you see there's also other means to gain points. The Axis can gain points from the number of men who are casualties from the Soviet Union and the number of guns and armoured fighting vehicles and aircraft that are destroyed. Over 200,000 casualties on the Soviet side, then the Germans only gain 200 points. It's quite clear that even in the best circumstances possible of causing maximum casualties amongst the Soviet units, that the Axis cannot gain enough points to make up for not controlling Minsk. They need to get the points for having it at the end of the first turn. And mainly that is not to gain those points, but to prevent the Soviet Union getting those points. So we need to actually get to the outskirts of Minsk. We need to attack Minsk. We need to still have enough movement points on at least one unit that allows us to actually move in and occupy Minsk and ensure that we keep control of it at the end of the turn. There's another stack of infantry units here. We don't need to do anything with any of these, but I am going to do something with them. I'm going to show another few extra points here. In this particular hex, there are 3 units stacked. These are the 35th Infantry Division, the 5th Infantry Division, and the 5th Corps. And these 2 infantry divisions are both part of that Corps headquarters. And I will do something with these, and the reason I'm going to do something with them to illustrate that we can further force the Soviet units away from the front line in this part of the front. And just again illustrate 1 or 2 points that I want to make at this early stage to help you understand this very basic level of combat. The 35th Infantry Division. Could we do what we did before and break it down? So let's click on the button. No, nothing happens. Click on it again. Click on it again. No, nothing happens. It will not allow us to break down the 35th Infantry Division, and it does not tell us why. There is no message showing, oh, okay, you can't do that. And it's a bit frustrating if you didn't understand what the rules were. But the rules are that you can only have 3 tiles within a hex. We already have 3 tiles within a hex. So if we were to split the infantry division, the 35th Infantry Division, into 3, we would end up with 5 tiles in this hex, and that's not allowed. Each division needs to maintain its integrity, remain as a whole unit until it is in a position in a hex on its own. If we look here at the front line, at that point we have one of these weak dug-in battalions, the machine guns and artillery battalions, and what we say is that using the whole infantry division is just overkill. It's 13.3 against 0.2. We don't need to do that. But that's not the case at this hex above it. This hex here is different as it isn't one of these little battalions that are dug in. This is a full Soviet division. If we hover over it, we'll see that according to the pop-up, there is again one of these dug-in artillery battalions, but there is also the 128th Rifle Division. This is a much stronger unit. It's a much more well-defended hex. The defense combat value is 6.1. So we now have a much more difficult nut to crack. So in this case, we probably do want a full infantry division. In fact, even with a full infantry division, we only have odds of about 2 to 1, 13.3 compared to 6.1. If we attack here at 2 to 1, we may not actually even win the battle. The Soviet defenders may hold, may be a draw. They're not going to defeat us in the sense that we will be crushed ourselves, but they may hold their position and not be defeated. If they lose the battle, then I think the likelihood is they would retreat. So we need better odds than this. So there's two ways to do this. Again, we decide, we hold the shift key down, make a deliberate attack. We double our attack value. So straight away we then have the massive odds in our favour and we will overwhelmingly win this battle. But we're going to then cause combat damage to this hex. So the other option that we have is, well, okay, we've got all of these. We've got 2 infantry divisions here in this corps. Why don't we use them? Or there's another alternative. We have the regiments from the other corps that we've already moved forward, here, and these still have movement points left. They can also engage in this attack. How do we do that? So let's go back where we have the infantry division selected here, the 35th Infantry Division. If we hover over the Soviet unit, and hold the shift key down, we get the deliberate attack. And if we then move our mouse to be over this one, what we see is we now can engage far more units in this one single attack. And we now see that we have a deliberate attack, which is 60 against 6. It's overkill. We don't need to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use both of the infantry divisions of this corps. So I'm going to select that one. And I'm going to use both of them in a hasty attack so that I cause minimum damage to this hex. And hopefully that's far better odds than I need to force them to surrender or rout. So right click, and one of those units surrendered and the other one was routed. What happened when it routed? And it's not obvious, but here there is a unit which was not on the map before. And when I now hover over this hex, we see that as well as an anti-tank brigade and the 85th Rifle Division, there is also the 128th Rifle Division, which is the rifle division that we've just attacked. And it is routed all the way back to here. So you see it's moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hexes. Sometimes they'll even move further away than that, so it's moved quite far away from its original position. The fact it's moved quite far back and away from our line of advance is absolutely fine. If you look at the statistics next to the 120th Rifle Division on the pop-up on the map, it is 0-0. It has no attack value. It has no defense value. It is a useless unit. It's shown on the map and it will eventually grow back to full strength, but it can't engage in any combat. If we come anywhere close to this unit with one of our units, it will run away again. It won't even engage in combat. We won't be able to attack it. As soon as we come close to it, it will simply move back another couple of hexes. So I think we've effectively done what we wanted. We've now captured this hex. And we've cleared out both of the enemy units that were in this hex. That has caused no combat damage to that hex. And that hex is also one that has roads and a single railway line passing through it. Go back to the Panzer unit and we can see that we can pass through there with minimal damage. And so as soon as I come up here towards Vilnius, that in fact the Panzer Division, it has 2 routes it could get through the hexes that we now control, and it's still going through the hexes that we already captured. So we didn't actually need to capture that. It wasn't essential to the overall control of the mission,
but it's still useful to see that we could carry out an attack like this. We'd simply use both of the infantry divisions, still carry out a hasty attack, and still not cause any combat damage. Those two infantry divisions are here. You see they've used one of their movement points, so they still can move quite far further forward. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move one of them to here. Now you see if I want to move to this hex, it's going to use up 3 of its movement points, and it's because it's going to move into a swamp. If I move here up the road, I can move all the way towards Altius on the map, and I've still got 11 movement points. I'm going to just show about one element with the core. If I just select the core. For a core, I can't move to Soviet-controlled hexes. I can move to any of the German-controlled hexes. I can't move outside of that. And that's because a headquarters unit cannot move into enemy-controlled hexes and capture them on its own. Those have to be already captured by an infantry division or a panzer division or a motorized division before the core headquarters can move into them. So this core headquarters could move to here and be quite advanced. I'm going to only move it to this point here. Let me do that again. I'm going to only move it to this point here. Okay, it won't move into this point here either. This is because it's a frontline hex which is adjoining the Soviet units. I'm going to move it to here. And I've also moved the other infantry division there. And now I'm going to move that other infantry division further forward. So I've got both of these infantry divisions here in an advanced position. They've moved quite far further forward with their points because they've been able to move along the roads, and they didn't use many movement points because they used a hasty attack. I'm now in a position where I can attack Altius. What we find when we hover over this one is that we have the 5th Tank Division here in Altius. But even with a hasty attack, we have 8.1 to 2.3, and I think that is good enough odds. We don't have a huge attack value, despite the fact we've got 2 full infantry divisions here, and the reason for that is because we're going to attack over a river. If we hold the shift key down, we increase the attack value 16.3 to 2.3, but we're going to cause damage to the road. So I'm going to take the risk here, and I'm going to carry out a hasty attack across the river into Altius against this tank division. I'm not going to hold the shift key down. I'm just going to right click, and unfortunately this hasn't worked as well as I hoped it would. And the reason for that is you could say that the combat panel showed that this unit had retreated, and we now see that the unit is here. This is the 5th Tank Division. It's simply moved back one single hex. It's still engaged on the railway line, and it hasn't moved very far away, hasn't routed, hasn't surrendered. Nevertheless, we have now captured this town, which has the roads and the railway going through it. And we did so without actually causing any combat damage to the town. We now have both of our infantry divisions have moved all the way forward to this town, and still have, one of them has 9 movement points and one of them has 8 movement points, and we still have enough movement points to attack a second time. So again, it's worth noting that in this game we can make multiple movements in a turn, and we can make multiple attacks, and some of those attacks as hasty attacks, some of those attacks as deliberate attacks. The odds here are still well in our favour even with a hasty attack, 7.6 to 1.6, and that is because the tank division, although it retreated, it didn't surrender or it didn't rout, it still lost the battle and still took quite a lot of damage. Its original defense value, I think, was 2, and it is now down to a defense value of 1.6. So I think we would win this battle if we did a hasty attack, and I'm going to carry that out. We had massively in favour. The odds were 20 to 1. That unit routed. Can I see where it's gone on the map? Okay, here it is. What we're looking for is a unit which has now got this banner in the corner with an R. That is a routed unit, and a routed unit then has 0, 0. Defense value of 0, attack value of 0. It's useless. But the main thing is it's moved well away from our line of advance. We could get the Panzer Group out of the front lines without using the 2 divisions of the 5th Corps, but using those 2 divisions to attack together through those strong Soviet hexes, those well-defended hexes. We have managed to move that infantry division, those 2 infantry divisions, quite far forward and already cause a lot of damage to the overall defensive position of the Soviets. We still actually have movement points in here. Look, we have the 35th and the 5th Infantry Divisions still have 8 movement points. So can we move the 35th further forward? Yes, we can. It still has 6 movement points. And it has enough movement points to carry out a deliberate attack here against this unit. But we can do a hasty attack, 5.8 to 1.9. Odds are not massively in our favour, so we could bring forward the other infantry division if we wanted to. And I'm going to do that. And what I want to show is that, again, we can now click on the 2 tiles, so both of them are selected. And we can do another hasty attack here, which attacks both of them. Now, we could split them up and we could have one of the divisions attack this one here and one of them attack here. And I think we'd probably win both battles. But what I want to do is I want to do a decisive defeat here because, and you say the Panzer Group might use this route to come up onto the railway line. I think they won't. I think what will happen is they will simply go through these hexes here because these are clear hexes. These are open farmland. The tanks can just simply go off-road, straight across the open ground. They can use small tracks or small minor roads. They won't necessarily follow the line of the railway line. But I'm going to still illustrate the point. Combine these 2 again together, and I'm going to do another hasty attack. Bang! And we rout this unit as well. And these 2 infantry divisions still have some movement points. Move one of them forward here to capture this particular point. So the benefit actually isn't that we have also forced another Soviet unit off the map and out of our way, but we've also captured a hex, which is one on the railway line, but we also have captured a hex, which is an airbase. You see, there's an airbase icon there, and Altius itself was also an airbase. And both of them are actually major air bases because they have 2 runways. Here, if we were playing the grand campaign or we were playing the scenario all the way through, that has been quite useful to us to simply deny the Soviets the use of these air bases. The air units that were there will have had to retire or the planes have been captured. Now I'm just going to go again back to the info screens and we go to the losses. And now we see that the Soviets have lost 13,000 men, 329 guns and 45 armoured fighting vehicles. Their losses are quite considerable. Our losses are very small. We've lost only a couple of 100 men, 16 guns and none of our armoured fighting vehicles. The infantry divisions that we've currently been using really don't have many armoured vehicles at this point in the war. Perhaps only some armoured cars, and they've not suffered any loss of any of those. So you see we've managed to clear out quite a large area of the front in this sort of way by looking at what we're facing. Are we facing one of these weak battalions that we don't need to use a whole infantry division? Are we using whole infantry divisions or even 2 infantry divisions on the stronger Soviet units? And can we use a combination of hasty attack or deliberate attack? Now, if we go to this point, what we'll see is there is a 3rd corps along this part of the front. The 12th Panzer Division is here. I'm going to move the 12th Panzer Division to Altius. We've started the possibility now to get the Panzer Group out of the front lines. But I'm just going to very quickly show that we repeat this over again.
Here I'm working with the units of the 8th Corps. The 8th Corps consists of the HQ and 3 divisions under General Hetz. They're part of the 9th Army, and the units on the map start the scenario coloured light green with the rest of the army. You can change this. Instead of having the whole army one colour, you could apply a different colour to each corps. This can help to recognise which units relate to which corps. Corps your basic command level. this game has no leaders at the division or regiment level. When resolving combat, it is the stats of the general at corps level which is considered first, then the army, etc. So it is important that you have good leaders at corps level and the units remain within the command range of 5 hexes. Personally, I like to always keep the units of a corps together on the map. They should have their own clear area of the front line and avoid getting mixed up with units from other corps. Okay, you can see that I've done a succession of attacks using a combination sometimes of full divisions, sometimes of regiments, and I've cleared off the whole of this part of the front line. Of course, another whole series of Soviet units to surrender, of course, some of them to rout. Some of them were in this location where we've captured another hex which has an air base. We are forcing the Soviet units towards the southeast. What we're starting to do is to see that it is possible to get behind the Soviet units in this part of the front so that we can start to build a pocket and we can clear out and destroy a massive area of the front line. If you simply advance from the front lines here, what will happen is some of them will rout and they will try and move away from you. They will run away. The AI will be enough to realize that it doesn't have a good position and it will try and move away, stop them being encircled and destroyed. So it's a good idea to use the Panzer Group at the south, the 2nd Panzer Group, that instead of trying to capture victory points, that you actually move through the lines here and then turn more towards the north and try and close the pocket. We've moved part of the Panzer Group forward. We moved this Panzer Division to Altius. And what we now see is that we can move it further forward. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move to Vilnius. The Motorized Corps has a blue unit here, which is the 18th Motorized Division. And the 18th Motorized Division again has 50 movement points. That can move it all the way also up to Vilnius. Can actually move it into Vilnius, 36 movement points, 36 to here. Then again, we've controlled a little bit more hexes to slightly to the north. Now I'm just going to scroll the map up a little bit. So you can see that actually we've now captured all the way up to this part of the edge of the map and that there's nothing in these hexes above it. So we've still got this one single Soviet hex, so one single Soviet unit here, which is a potential division that could be used in a counterattack. But it's got no support, it's surrounded now, it's cut off from supplies. It's not going to do anything. It has an attack value of 1, defense value of 1. It's not really a threat to us at all. But we could still try and deal with that if we wanted to. This infantry division can move here with 3. Still got some movement points. Can it make a hasty attack here? Yes, it can. And it would still have overwhelming odds, 4.9 to 1.1. So I'm going to do that. And it is routed. Where's it gone to? I think it's this one here. So it's routed way out of our area. We now have this whole area cleared of Soviet units. The only thing that's blocking our route towards Minsk now appears to be a routed rifle division here, and it will run away again as soon as we move towards it. A headquarters here, rifle corps. It has no attack value or defense value. It will run away. And then we have this single division here, the 24th Rifle Division. And then we're in Minsk. I mentioned before we can't move a Panzer Corps or a corps headquarters of any sort outside of the area that we control, but we now control quite a big area and we can now move this forward. Now I just want to show that when we have
Is it this? Let me just find the Corps headquarters. (57th Corps) here is the Corps headquarters for these two. And now we've got less units on the map in this sort of area. But can you see that the blue lines that are emanating from the Panzer Corps headquarters from the unit on the map here? There are two blue lines moving all the way up here to show that these are the two divisions which are attached to that corps. It's a little easier once things are spread out. Nevertheless, it's not actually very clear because those blue lines are quite faint. So you have to look fairly carefully for them. And because the units that are highlighted, the two divisions, are quite far away, it's not immediately obvious that they are trying to look at things that are that far away. So you have to keep in mind the units that all belong to each other. Now remember, all I need to do is select the motorized division, and we have the orange line moving back towards its commanding unit, and the orange unit shows where it is located here. So we can find it from these units. We can work our way back to the headquarters, or from the headquarters we can move our way down towards the motorized and the Panzer divisions. But the other thing I want to show here is that when we have the Panzer Corps headquarters selected, instead of being blue, the two divisions now are red. And what that's shown is they are too far away now to be under the control of the headquarters. Be within the area of control of the headquarters, the Corps headquarters, they need to be within 5 hexes. The game forces us, because we get bonuses, I believe, in combat from being close to our headquarters, to keep the headquarters fairly close to the fighting divisions. So as we move the divisions forward, we need to move the Corps headquarters again. But every time, remembering we can only move our Corps headquarters into hexes that we control, and we do not want to put our headquarters units in a position where they could be counterattacked because they have very poor attack and defense values. I'm going to move this all the way to Vilnius, and that's safe. It's quite close to the front line, but it's safe because it's in a hex where we have the motorized division. So if we were actually counterattacked, the motorized division would protect the headquarters. And what you see is as it gets closer, those two divisions changed from red to blue. So even as it was moving, as it got close to about this position, the two divisions recognized straight away that they were within the area of control of the headquarters, and they went back to being blue, highlighting on them. So we could have simply moved the headquarters up to here. I think Altius would have been a bit too far away, but we could have moved it to one of the hexes here. But we may as well keep it very close to the frontline units. This is another aspect of the overall command and control, that we can move forward in bounds, and we can do this within a single turn. Remember, we're still in the first turn here. We can move forward in more than one movement throughout the turn, and we move the individual units, and we don't move them too far forward from the headquarters, and then we move the headquarters up to be with them. And we certainly want to do that if this unit engages in combat. The main point here is that before we get to Minsk, before we carry out an attack in Minsk, we need to move forward as many of the divisions as possible to carry out a successful attack, and we need to move forward the Corps headquarters so that the Corps headquarters is within 5 hexes. Now we have another corps from the Panzer Group. We see here it is this one here. It is the 34th Motorized Corps, and it has again a division here, the 20th Panzer Division. I'm going to move this forward to here. I could move it to Vilnius as well, but I just want to keep the two corps separate. Now it has its headquarters here, and it has 2 yellow divisions. I'm going to move this 14th Motorized Division. I'll also move it to there. 7th Panzer Division is here in this hex. I'm going to move that forward. And now we have 3 units stacked there, so we can't actually move another one in. And this corps, interestingly, has 4 units. So you can see when the corps headquarters is selected, 3 units here are outside of the command area. They are red, but there's still a blue one here. So in fact, the 39th Motorized Corps has 4 divisions, while the 57th Motorized Corps has only 2. that's an interesting point. You see that not all corps are equal sizes. Now, it is possible to transfer units between corps and make them different sizes if you want. Corps headquarters is outside of the command area. I can't move it to this same hex, but I can move it right up adjacent to it. And again, you see now they turn to blue, those 3 divisions, because they're now within the command area. But this one that's been left behind is red. Just select that one, 20th Motorized Division, and I'll move that up to where the corps headquarters are. So I've now got the other corps of the Panzer Group located in these 2 hexes. 1 Panzer Corps here, 1 Panzer Corps here. And we now have 2 corps completely free of our original front lines, all now out in the open and able to have freedom of movement. We can see that if we select the Motorized Division, we can move quite far to the south here, we can move here, we can move past Minsk, we can move quite far to the north, just bypassing lots of enemy units. So we're well on our way to our objective. The last thing we've got now is that we have the Panzer Group here, so the 3rd Panzer Group headquarters, and you see it has blue lines coming from it to the 2 corps headquarters. For a corps headquarters to remain within the command of an army level headquarters, they have to be within 15 hexes, not 5. So a division to a corps, 5 hexes, a corps to an army, 15 hexes. They are still within the 15 hexes, but in fact they're not going to be able to move much further forward without the Panzer Group being too far away to exert control. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the Panzer Group headquarters forward. I'm going to only move it to Altius. And you see now it's close enough. We don't need to get it right up close to the front line, but we've kept that moving forward as well. Again, while illustrating this point, we need to keep the command structure intact by keeping the headquarters within reasonable distances from the frontline units. If we don't do that, those frontline units can suffer penalties within combat. I'm not looking at the details here. We're not going to go back through the manual. I recommend Strategy Gaming Dojo's tutorials. He goes into this in massive depth. He now has 6-7 hour-long tutorials available with all of the information. I'm simply showing the general principle that we move these forward. What we want to do now as quickly as possible is finish this off, and I'm going to move the Motorized Division simply 1 hex forward towards that routed unit. You'll see again the routed unit will run away again. It's run away to here. I'm going to move forward again. Routed unit and the headquarters both run away. Now I believe this unit is, okay, so there's a headquarters and there's a rifle division. Now, do I want to attack the rifle division? I don't know if I do. I can move to the south here. I can move all the way past it. I can even move around these front lines. But I have more than enough units. I've got this Panzer Division. I'm going to move that to the... I'm going to move it all the way up to here. I'm going to move it up to facing these defensive ring around Minsk. Now you see there's quite a few units around Minsk. There is some of these weak battalion units forming a sort of dug-in line at the front here. And to the north and the south there are full divisions. And if I hover over here, we can see that again there is one of these fortified battalions, weak, and a tank division. Overall, the defensive value is 1.2. And even with a hasty attack, the Panzer Division will completely overwhelm these. 14.3 to 1.2. I do not need to carry out a deliberate attack. In fact, I don't even need to carry out an attack with the whole division. So although I've moved a long way from my front lines, what I'm going to show is I can still split this Panzer Division. So you can do this at any point within the turn. You can build up and break down units repeatedly. And the reason I want to do that is I'm just going to select one of the regiments. And what I'm going to show is that we actually can carry out a hasty attack here, 4.5 to 1.2. Now the odds are a bit close here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit 2 of the regiments. And the reason I don't want to do a deliberate attack, but I want to avoid damaging the hex. So I think 2 regiments is absolutely fine. And carry out that. What we say is 1 unit surrendered and 1 unit was routed. So we've carried out our objective there. We've cleared that hex now. We've had to use 1 movement points for each of those 2 regiments, but we still have a regiment with 23 movement points that still can move quite far. And I'm going to just select that particular one. It's this one here, the 1st regiment. You see it can still move a long way further to the north. It can move out here to the east, so it can even move past Minsk. But as we've shown here, to move towards Borisov, unfortunately it runs out of movement points before it gets to cross the river at Borisov. And that's because there is swamps and woods and things here, even though there's roads, that still the terrain is not brilliant. But we've managed to maintain the division. If I wanted to, I could now use this division to carry out a hasty attack against this. And I'm going to do that. And that unit surrendered. It was just one of those fortified units, dug-in units. And now I've got the situation where I have cleared out the northern defences of Minsk. I've used very few of the movement points. I've used 1 movement point per regiment. All 3 regiments are still in the same hex. I could spread them out, but I can also move them back together again. So I have my full Panzer Division back as 1 single unit, and we can move them again. The whole 3 regiments move back together again as we want. Now we could use this Panzer Division to move right up to the edge of Minsk and attack into Minsk. Now it's not easy to see, but I believe we are not attacking over the river. Minsk is on the west of the river, and we're not having to attack over a river to get there. But what I want to show is that, in fact, what we could do is move up the motorized division. And I'm going to do that because infantry are better at attacking into a town than tanks. So I'm going to use the motorized division to move all the way up to here. And the motorized division could carry out a hasty attack. Unfortunately, Minsk itself is defended by a motorized NKVD border regiment, which actually is quite strong. It has quite a high defense value. It's probably the strongest unit we've seen so far. It's 5.9. It's in a town, which is difficult to attack. And is it dug in? What I can do now, I've still got the Panzer Division. Now remember what I mentioned before is that we have a situation where these 2 units are now out of control. They're too far away from the headquarters. So I want to move the headquarters forward. I move it to there. You see the Panzer Division is now within control, but the infantry, the motorized division, is not. And I'm a bit cautious now about moving the headquarters further forward because of these enemy units. But we have the 2nd Corps here. No, that's the Panzer Group. The Corps is here. The 39th Motorized Corps. So we can do something with these. Now, I think we'd need to decide what we're going to do in terms of our strategy. Are we going to use these, or some of them, to help close the pocket, or are we simply going to use them to blast forward in the northeast direction to capture victory points? And I think that's what we're going to do. I'm going to use the motorized division of this one to move up to here. Move the headquarters quite close to here, so that the motorized division is now within control, and I'm going to use the motorized division to attack these units here. Use a deliberate attack. I'm going to use up more of its movement points, but I want to clear these units away. Okay, so they were routed, and they have fled all the way across the river over to here. All right, so they're well away from our now line of attack. Now we can move this one to this town. You see, because we've used a deliberate attack, we've caused damage to the town. It's not brilliant for us moving through the town. Nevertheless, we can move here, and you see then the unit that was there has run away. Again, I've got plenty of movement points. I can advance all the way to here. And there is a routed unit in the headquarters, but there's something else here which is not. The routed units only run away if they're sitting in a hex on their own. The headquarters only run away because there is this NKVD border guard detachment. The headquarters and the routed units won't run away, but I can do another hasty attack here. It routes the border guard detachment, and the other 2 units then run away. we've now used nearly all the movement points of this motorized division. You see there's nothing in front of us, but we can only move to here. Can we move to here? We can only move to here. No, we can't even move there. You can see now we've used all of the movement points of this. We only have 2 left, and that isn't enough to allow us to move any other adjoining hexes. So this is the first unit that we've seen from the Panzer Group where it has exhausted all its movement points. So you start to see now why I also said of all of these victory points further to the north and to the east are too far away for us to reach. But we've now cleared enough. Let's go back and we will move this Corps headquarters to there. Now note the headquarters still has many movement points. It still has 21, but it can't move outside of the area of control that we've already established. So it can't move much further forward. But we could actually we may as well go to there. And I'm just going to move up all of these other. So now we have a situation that if we move this as Panzer Division, we can move as far as this point where we've captured control to this town, Krivici. But because we're not engaging in combat to get here, and we've been able to move up roads, unlike the motorized division, we have still got 20 movement points. We can move up this road, still got 17 movement points, and now we face another unit. So let's attack that and rout that. Again, we've captured another town and another air base, and we still have 16 movement points left, and we can move all the way to here. And we still have movement points, so we can actually attack here, and that surrendered that unit, and we can still move further right the way forward up to the Dvina River. Now, the problem is to get to this victory point, which is Polotsk. It is defended by 2 rifle divisions, although one of those is routed and has no defense value, and it is over a river. We can do a hasty attack with 9 to 2.1. Can we do a deliberate attack and capture Polotsk? No, we can't. It won't allow us. We don't have enough movement points to do a deliberate attack. If we do a hasty attack, I don't know if we're going to be left with any movement points to be able to move into Polotsk if we defeat the enemy units, but I'm going to try it. I can't also do a hasty attack. We simply do not have enough movement points to carry out an attack over a river into a town that is being defended. So now we're in a situation. Let me move the headquarters further forward. And I'll select the motorized division. Motorized division, I can move all the way forward here in one single. But unfortunately, you see that when it arrives, it only has 3 movement points left. Not enough for it to carry out an attack. What about the other goal? It won't even let me move to that point on the river. So the furthest it can move is here to be up close. Now, I think what I want to do is actually move this one, not up to here, because we've still got a second turn. We could still advance those units across the river, capture Polotsk on the second turn. This division here, I can't move it anywhere, but we could use the second turn to attack towards Borisov. And if I move this division to, say, here, in fact, I'm going to move it here, we could move it the next turn across the river towards Lapel for that victory point. In fact, we can actually move it all the way to here. We may as well. Oh, okay. Now, interestingly, the unit which was in here seems to have run away because it was a headquarters unit. It's run away. So, unfortunately, we don't have enough movement points to simply move in and capture this, but we will the next turn. This corps is now pretty spread out. We've got 2 of the units up here. One here and one there. But we've got the option now to spread out across the other victory points in the second turn. We've come very close, but not close enough to getting some of these other victory points. Can we capture Minsk? Well, let's move this unit forward. Now we could attack either of these, but there's a full division here. It's a fairly weak division. It's just a rifle division. 9.4 to 1.0. And now I'm going to move the headquarters forward. And just to be safe side, I'm going to check the Panzer Group. Panzer Group's still within the range of these headquarters, but I moved the whole Panzer Group up now to here. Let's just take this Panzer Division, break it up, and what would a single regiment do if it was to attack this division? 2.9 to 1.0, that's a bit close. What about two of them? 5.8 to 1.0. I'm happy with those odds. And I've routed that and not caused damage. Put them back into the single division. Move the division forward. So the panzers are now behind this defensive line. And now it's possible for us to do a combined attack of the motorized division and the panzer division in one single attack. 17.2 to 5.9. We should win this. So I'm holding the shift key down to do a deliberate attack so I can attack with both divisions from different directions. Launch the attack. Let's see what happens. They have surrendered. Oh, sorry, the regiment has routed and moved all the way back to here. And we have took control of Minsk, and I think you saw a pop-up message which shows the Minsk depot has been captured. So there's a supply depot there, and we've captured the supplies. You have to be careful. You have to be able to think this through and make sure that you keep enough movement points at least one of these two divisions that you can actually move into Minsk. Not just that we can make it grey, but we've still got enough movement points. Now, if we go to the Panzer Division, does not have enough movement points to move into Minsk. Now, that seems odd. There's no enemy division there. We control it. But because it's a town and because it's suffered combat damage, we don't have enough movement points to actually take 100% control of it. And if we were to finish the turn now, what the Soviets would do is one of these infantry divisions into Minsk and recapture it. What we've done is we've been able to maintain this motorized division in a situation by keeping it from as little combat as possible until it got to the final stages of Minsk, so that it still had enough movement points so it can actually move into Minsk. Because we have a pretty strong division sitting there, we know that we can't lose control of Minsk. When the Soviets take their turn, they could use all of these units to try and counterattack Minsk, but they're not going to shift us out of there. Particularly as I think they would have to attack over the river into a town. Well, it's not going to happen. We still have the Panzer unit. We couldn't move into the town. Can we attack here? Yes, we can. We could still attack some of these other units. I'm just going to finish this off by splitting that down. I'm going to use one of these to attack this fortified unit. Surrendered. Use another one of them to attack this one. Again, these are just hasty attacks. We don't need to do deliberate attacks. Surrendered. And now we need to decide whether we're going to try and also clear off this unit here to the south. Now, interestingly, here there is one of these dug-in battalions, but there's also a mechanized division and a border guard detachment. But what we see in the statistics for the mechanized division is 0-0. So that mechanized division has been one of the units that's probably already engaged in combat further to the north and has retreated here. That's what it appears to be, the situation here. There's 3 enemy units here, but they're pretty weak. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move that forward. And unfortunately what happens is that when I move them forward, I don't have enough points to then yeah, I do. Okay, I've got just enough points from these ones that have 5 movement points left to move into this hex and still be able to attack here. So I'm going to do that attack. One surrendered, one routed. See, I've then cleared off that. So I think the one that routed is the one that moved to here, and one of them surrendered. I've managed to now clear off the whole of the defensive line that was originally here on the west of Minsk. And we have still some forces to the east, but some of these are headquarters, some of them are not strong units. Now, the Motorized Division still has movement points, so we still could carry out an attack here, actually. Could still carry out an attack against this rifle division. It's the one thing that potentially could counterattack us. As I said, that's not strong enough. But why not? Let's just attack them. Okay, so not an overwhelming defeat. They've retreated and they've moved to here. But you say that because they suffered the defeat in that battle, they've now gone from a 2-2 to a 1-1. They've suffered enough losses that that's the situation. Can we now move across to here? No, we still don't have enough movement points. Oh, yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. We've now got the Panzer Division split into two. I think these are strong enough still that there's nothing the Soviets can do to counterattack this make much difference. What you see is here at the north is there is a retreated mechanized corps and a tank division, both which seem to have no combat values, and headquarters and routed divisions here, and two very weak divisions. I think we've got enough here with our Panzer Division regiments still that these are not in any danger. But this is where you have to be careful. In the campaign, you'd have to make a decision. Do I want to leave these units in a situation where the single regiment could be counterattacked? I think because we haven't got fog of war turned on, we can be absolutely sure that there's nothing here ready that within range that the Soviets could bring up that would attack us.
Let's just take a quick overview of some of the strategy that we've already employed. Here we have the map, and what I've done is I've hidden the counters. What it allows you to do is to see the terrain and see some more of the overall infrastructure, like the roads and the railway, the rivers, where the swamps are, and the woods and things like that. We started the scenario with the 6th Corps under General Förster, and he had two divisions. What we did was we just pushed out from here. We only used one of the divisions. We still had another division, so we still had plenty of strength in reserve if we'd wanted to use it. That was our first initial combat. And then we also saw that we could take the 5th Corps using its two divisions working together. We pushed out in this direction through Elitas to Oran, capturing these two air bases and securing the road and the rail network through in this direction. We then took the 8th Corps under General Heitz. This has three divisions. We didn't look at this in any detail. We showed this as speeded up. They pushed out across here towards the railway line, and they pushed out to this area here, captured Grodno and the air base there, and they pushed down towards the south in this sort of direction. And part of that was then to form a new front line in that sort of position that was encircling the Soviet units. Now, our wider strategy that we've seen so far, we need a bit wider view of the map. For the 3rd Panzer Group, we then had two Panzer Corps, or motorized corps I should really call them. That's what the game calls them. And they both start in this sort of location. So I will just simply put that this is the 3rd Panzer. They push out towards Minsk. They initially came to this sort of place here. So we staged them in a location around here, from Vilnius and down the railway line. From there, we then pushed out towards Minsk, and we pushed out with the 57th. This was under General Kuntzen, and this has three divisions, though we actually only played with two. I made a mistake and left one of them behind. It was in a stack with some other infantry divisions.
would have made our life a lot easier if we'd used 3 divisions instead of 2, but we were able to locate to around this area, and then we pushed actually into Minsk itself and the surrounding area. We cleared off some of this. The other Panzer Corps we pushed to here, where we engaged in a battle there. We had a battle here, and this was the 39th. And then with the 39th, we then pushed all the way up to the Dvina River here with 2 of our divisions. We pushed with 1 across towards Lapel. We came right up to the river there as well. In either case, we weren't able to actually cross the rivers, take those 2 cities. And then we had another division that was this sort of area, ran out of movement points around here because it had engaged in a number of battles in this area. So we then formed a defensive perimeter along the Dvina River and then down this river and this wooded area and some swamps. So although the corps was spread out quite well, actually it's not easy to have counterattacked it through the terrain that was available, but it's still risky. Here in Minsk, there is a river there. We come up to the river. If the Soviets were to counterattack, they would have to cross over the river. As I said, if we'd brought the 3rd one up, then we would have had a much stronger defensive perimeter to hold there. That's where we've gone for with the strategy so far. Now, I would like to do a 3rd video and maybe a 4th video. We didn't see anything in the southern part of the front. So the question is, what would we do with the 2nd Panzer? I mentioned the possibility that we could push out from here and then potentially come this sort of way and try and link up with the 3rd Panzer or with the 9th Army so that we'd form a huge pocket around here. So that's the possibility of what we can do further and help us to understand more of how we can play this game. At some stage we need to look at logistics, we need to look at the air war. There's whole sections there which are complex and difficult to get into, but we can start to introduce some of those factors as well. I hope you've enjoyed this, I hope you found this interesting, and I hope that you like and subscribe to the video, and I hope to provide some more content for you. My name's Mark, I'm from Canny Wargaming. This is a new channel, it's our first couple of videos, and I'm so far enjoying this. So it's quite complicated to put these videos together. It's quite interesting and hard work, so whether I continue this is another question, but I hope you've enjoyed this and you've got something out of it. Thank you.